Hey everybody, it's Mike Peterano here, and we're live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. I have Joe Jaffe with me, and he reached out to me about this story about the You're Never Alone series. And before I ended it, I definitely wanted to get him in and have him share his hope and positivity with everybody, and give a little bit of it out because I think the world needs it right now. So Joe, if you can go into your story a little bit and just explain a little bit about you and what you do and how this has all really impacted you and you've shifted.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I kind of say that these days, it's very much like The Walking Dead. Like we have the pre-pandemic and then the post-pandemic lives, right? You watch Walking Dead and you see like, leader of this like tyrannical, group of marauders was a school teacher before. And I kind of feel like this has been that game changing and life changing. So before this, I was, one of a billion marketing consultants, thought leaders, authors. I've written 5 books. My first book was called Life After the 30-Second Spot. And what was so great about that book, I wrote in 2004. I came up with my bold new approaches to traditional advertising. One of them was mobile. One of them was gaming. One of them was search, which is not that breakthrough. But then one of them was what I called consumer-generated content. YouTube had not even been founded yet. One of them was communal marketing, which became known as social media. Facebook didn't exist. The iPhone didn't exist. Fast forward to last year, I published a book called Built to Suck: The Inevitable Demise of the Corporation and How to Save It. And that also kind of, was like a premonition to the demise of the corporation, as many companies have fallen by the wayside, obviously accelerated by the events of last year. And but as a public speaker, someone who really made most of his money from events and conferences and workshops and getting and flying a lot, everything just went to hell in a handbasket. I was actually in South Africa visiting my mom, who has been ill for about 4.5 years. She has cancer, and it is a chronic illness in her life, which hopefully will allow her to, we hope she will continue to manage that as a managed disease, as opposed to one that used to be like a death sentence. And I was visiting her, about to actually speak at a conference, because I try to like sometimes double up, do a bit of work while I was there. Phone rings. It's my wife telling me that she has COVID. This is March 11th, right? So I fly back the next day, go straight into self-isolation, quarantine. I never got it. I still haven't gotten it. And I just see one after one, all my speaking, all my revenue gone, evaporated, eviscerated. And I don't know what it was that just prompted me or the inspiration, but I just decided to go to Facebook and do a Facebook Live, maybe just connect with people, just say, hey, I'm all right, or how are you guys doing? No marketing objective, no business plan. And then I decided to do it again. And then I was like, you know what, maybe I should do it every day. And then I went to Zoom, and then I found StreamYard, which is what we're on right now. And then I spoke to my sister who was struggling. She was in London. She has a spinning studio. She was told that she couldn't do any more in-person classes. So she put all the bikes on a U-Haul, called her best customer, said, who wants a bike? She pivoted her business. I said to her, why don't you come on my show and be my guest? She was my first guest. She actually had COVID at the time as well, believe it or not. And today, 185 interviews later, Corona TV was born. Corona TV, I'm all in on Corona TV. Like literally what I realized is, it took a global pandemic, but I've realized that this is my calling, my purpose. This is what I was meant to do. And by the way, I set up the show, even at the beginning, even from the stream to the Zoom to the StreamYard, to help people. The message is always for people that are stuck at home or stuck in general, you're not alone. So that's why I was so connected with what you were doing as well. I say the show is about hope, positivity, and optimism. And if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing. That's how I position it. And so in a way, you can see like this crazy flip in my life, how I was a marketer that might have spent a bit of time on hope, positivity, and optimism, and now I've completely turned that on its head.
So, hey, Rhonda, I'm bad with comments, so we're gonna have to just roll with me on that one. I'm still figuring out how to do the
I can teach you. I do this a lot.
Well, hopefully on the 15th, my producer takes that over and it'll make my life easier. But so let's talk a little bit deeper about that shift, right? Like, what was the emotional? Like, you went from visiting your mother who has chronic cancer to going back to your wife overnight who had COVID, and that was before it was like the whole world shut down because, like, I'm stranded in Arkansas because I took emergency custody of my kids March 6th. My original court date was March 31st. I didn't get to court till October 28th, and now I'm going to be here till sometime in March, and I'm still here because of COVID. So my life has been flipped upside down as well. Now through that, I went into a spiritual, physical, emotional, mental transformation, right? Like on all levels, and I did a ton of work on myself, and I'm finding my definitive purpose now, right? Which is to inspire others to help do the same thing. And hey, Annie. Hey, Bill.
Hey, Annie. Hey, Bill. Hey, Rhonda.
So it's, I'm curious, like, what was the emotional side? Like when you went from your mother and you got that call and you jumped on that plane, like, what were you thinking at that moment? Like, what were you going through?
So, I mean, part of this whole period of time, there's that old classic, which is if I knew then what I knew now, what I know now, I wouldn't have done it. Is we were all kind of making it up as we went along. We didn't really quite know. I mean, I recoil from humans when I see them in real life. But right now, you and I are 4 feet apart. We could hug each other right now. We could touch each other right now. The intimacy that I've been able to achieve through this is very different to how I'm still struggling now, realizing how changed I am. But part of the thing is sometimes, when you are in survival mode, you either survive or you don't, right? You sink or you swim. Sometimes life has to be that binary. And I mean, I remember my sleep just got so disrupted, so terrible, I would be waking up at 4:50 in the morning just so I could switch TV on and just watch glued to find out what the hell was going on then. So many things. Like I remember the one thing about streaming every day is you've got a public record of everything. Like I can go back and find the show when we hit 1,000 deaths, when we hit 10,000 deaths, when we hit 100,000 deaths, when we hit 9/11's total, when we passed 9/11's total, and see what I was thinking and going through and how much I knew or thought I knew, etc. I've also gone through this emotional, I basically say our lives is manic depressive right now. The highs are super high, the lows are super low. And like on any given day, I'm like, just, screw it. Let me just go get it and get it over and done with. But it's like, but you can't do that. You can't have blind hope and faith and trust, whether it's in a higher power or whatever, or data, even, you've got to respect the science, respect the data, but you can't just say, well, 99.5%, whatever the number is. Well, I don't want to be the 0.5%. Right. I don't know if you, as a parent, do you remember when you go for like genetic testing or whatever for your future kids, and they go, well, the kid has a 1 in 10,000 chance of having this disease and that disease, and you're like, I wasn't comforted by that. I don't want, because I don't want to be the one.
Right.
So it's been this period of time, and the analogy I use is, do you remember the movie? Hey Felicia, do you know the movie? It is like very bipolar at the moment. The Perfect Storm, where the little ship is on this massive wave, and it's like it's powerless. You just have to go with the current. You just have to go with the wave and just trust in it, and that's how I feel our life is. We are in that flow right now, and if you swim against it, you will surely tire and surely drown. You have to just go with the flow, quite literally, and that's the only way that you survive right now. But I will tell you one thing, which is I'm not better than anyone than you or anyone that is watching, and I'm not worse off. Like we're all, we are all in this together. I hate it when the brands tell us that because it's patronizing. But as a human, as a human being, we are all in this together. And I've always said this to like my kids as well. You think you're rich, someone's richer. You think you're poor, someone's poorer. You think you're sick, someone's sicker as well. It's all relative. And I've been heartened by the fact that we are all going through this together. So it will be a shame. It will be a crime if ultimately we are not changed by this, if we don't allow it to change us, if we don't discover the power of being more vulnerable and more transparent and more emotional, and being able to tell someone, I'm scared, I don't know what to do, I don't know when my revenue is coming back, but I trust it will. Asking for help. These are all things I even said the other day, and it's kind of like, take it from whence it comes, don't take it too literally, but I said I almost feel sorry for people that have corporate jobs throughout this process, that had their six-figure, white-collar jobs, and they were unchanged. And they were like, well, I'm just at home. It's a bit of an inconvenience, but never had to experience what so many of us have had to go through. And of course, at the extreme end of that is death, and sickness, which is, that's why I've said, I agree with everyone on these comments. Rhonda said, just surrender. Yeah, we're all connected. Is that at the end of the day, what do we pray for? What do we hope for? Number one is health.
Yeah.
That's why I have the sunflowers in the background, right? Health, happiness, joy, love, and then and only then, monetary, financial, business success.
Yeah, and it goes back to, right, like, I agree with you. Anybody who has not been affected by this really missed an opportunity to level themselves up as human beings. Because there's such a lack of humanity right now around the world. And I think people have really been divided and torn apart by different things, different circumstances, different situations. And this was a time for people to rally together and come together and unify. And unfortunately, with media, with politics, with all these different reasons, the divisive natures have gotten worse. And there's so much less humanity. Like, there needs to be more heart, more empathy, more, it's about people, not the bottom line. And there's a way to care about people and the bottom line at the same time. And there's creative ways to lift others up while carrying yourself also.
Well, I would say that I think humans lost, humanity won, because I actually think that what has happened in 2020 in particular, and of course, the tongue-in-cheek thing is, it's the first time in our lives that we can actually say for a fact, hindsight is 2020. I always used to say, like, hindsight is 2020, except in 2020 when you don't need hindsight to realize it sucks. But I think what's happened is, at an individual level, humans have suffered, but I think humanity is benefiting. Sometimes it does take something so inconceivable and difficult for us to understand at the time, to think about things like, like racial injustice and inequality and the importance of diversity and inclusivity. And it's not really like even kumbaya. It's the fact that on my show on Corona TV, a big common and red thread is about this idea of conscious capitalism. How much money do you need? How much money do you need at the top? We don't. How incompetent can you be to get that golden parachute and leave a company in turmoil? That's my background from a corporate standpoint, or at least from a marketing standpoint. My point is that their capitalism has to evolve. Now, look, just a little bit of a tangent. I'm a marketing guy, and I got to say, like, without without getting political in any way, because it's like not for me to be political on someone else's show, and I'm not. But I'll tell you, the branding of socialism was wrong, but it was the right idea, but the execution was wrong. And what I mean by that is the word socialism is not an evolved term. It's not a term that a capitalist can understand, but conscious capitalism is. The evolution of capitalism is. The idea of evolution is something, as Darwin said, it is not the strongest of species that survives, nor the most intelligent, but rather the one that is the most adaptable to change. So we understand change. We understand that it is possible to have fun, make money, and do good, that these forces are not, cannibalistic at all. And so that's where my hope lies, is that we can figure out a better way. You're in Arkansas, right? There's I believe a small corporation in in Bentonville, right? But I mean, there's got to be a way to make sure that all stakeholders and all shareholders benefit, that it isn't just a complete lopsided imbalance. So that's the fight that I believe we all need to be fighting together.
And I agree. And I agree with you completely in this. Conscious capitalism, exactly what Rhonda's saying. There needs to be understood that human life is more valuable than a dollar. It needs to be understood that there's a way to flourish in capitalism while having some socialistic ideas, right? And concepts. And everything's a bad word. Everything's an extreme. There's no, like you said, the lack of evolution of thought processes around these ideas is really what drags us down as humans, right? We get really fixated, really stuck, and we really believe something. I'm a public speaker. I'm only going to make money flying around the world and speaking. Well, that gets ripped out from under you. Sometimes you pivot, sometimes you don't. You pivoted, right? You found your new path, your new purpose. Not everybody did, right? Now, the big speakers, they obviously have people calling them left and right. These huge names. Everybody knows who they are. They can do virtual, they can do all these different things, but a lot of these events went by the wayside, right? And you're talking about thousands and thousands of people that put out of work, took money out of their pockets, that aren't even included in the unemployment numbers. And you look at these numbers and you look at how society's been impacted, how commercialism and consumerism is going to change going forward. Excess is going to be probably a lot less going forward. People aren't going to go get those extras every week like they used to, right? They might go get extras every couple months. I think the way that we perceive money, the way that we understand our finances has to shift dramatically as well. There needs to be an enormous shift in financial education. People need to understand what they're getting themselves into before doing it, rather than just signing a line and saying, my car is 2 years old, I want a new car, right? Like, this consumerism mentality and consumer-centric situation, I feel like that's a broken principle also that needs to change. There you go.
I changed my background. You see, change is as good as a holiday. I've never done that before, by the way, just a midstream change.
I love it, though. It went straight to the heart, and it's all about heart, right? Like, everything is about heart. And I think that's the big shift that people that, are awake or aware or feel is the shift of this year, when they allow, and when
Michael, we are very, the problem with us as humans is that we're very short memories. I always use the example of you could get a little paper cut on your pinky or on one of your fingers, and you can't even tie your own shoelaces suddenly, and without getting graphic, you can barely even go to the toilet properly.
Yes.
Suddenly you realize the most basic things in your life, you are incapacitated, and you go, I mean, I go through this a lot, and I will never take my 10 fingers for granted again. I will never take the pinky for granted again. But the pinky heals, and the next thing you shout at someone because they cut in line or cut you off at an intersection. So we have very, very short memories, and I think it's up to people like you and like the two of us, and people that are streaming, people that have an outlet, people have a platform, to not let down our guards and not decrease that intensity. The phrase, it's something that's very close to me, never forget. In fact, it is the soliloquy today on my show, which it's so funny. Like, my show starts in an hour and 11 minutes. Us as streamies, I call us streamies.
Yeah.
But the soliloquy, my little monologue, is called "What Happened Yesterday," and I end with, a spoiler alert, right? I end with Winston Churchill's quote. He said, "Those of us that forget the past are doomed to repeat it."
Right.
And so, like, there will be another crisis. There will be another virus. There will be something else. I can show you 20 of these that have happened since 2000, since, remember Y2K? I mean, from Y2K, all these swine flus and, avian flus and whatever flus have come through, and all these crises in North Korea. it's documented how many crises we've gone through, and so we've got to stop acting like goldfish, right? The human, I mean, this is like an interesting data point. I've used this in presentations. The human attention span right now is shorter than a goldfish.
Yes,
It's
100%.
So we've got to really work on not muscle memory, but memory muscle. Memory muscle is what we need to start working on.
Well, I mean, but part of that goes back to the education system, right? The education system is a major issue in this country and globally. And the way that the education system hasn't shifted with the way that us as humans intake information, right? And the way that we process information. So the fact that there's still a dictator at the front of the room teaching the same way that there was 100 years ago, the same way that it was when Moses came off the mountain, nothing's changed. And, there needs to be so many evolutions and so many changes and so many things of catching up in time. And we're just not, I feel we're so stuck in our ways sometimes that we're scared to take that leap to change. And yes, it really is.
Because it's hard. Because it's human beings are not hardwired for change. The way the brain works is that it immediately, when it is exposed to a new stimulus or stimuli, it says, where have I seen this before? And it attempts to make sense of it and compartmentalize it. And so, for people like me, I've always been the square peg in a round hole. So I exist in a world where I don't necessarily fit in or want to fit in. But it's very hard when every framework or rubric is completely, altered irrevocably. And there's I speak on this, right? Which is, there are so many quotes, right? Change happens when the pain of not changing is greater than the pain of changing. And one of the best ways to position change is that it is hard. It's not romantic. It's not, there are going to be bumps and bruises. And sometimes you change because you want to, but most of the time we change because we have to. Like, I've been talking about this a lot lately, which is, it took a global pandemic. I lost 20 pounds in 2020. So some people spoke about the COVID-19, the plus 19. I was COVID minus 19. I lost 20 pounds. I got myself back into shape. I pivoted my business. I reinvented myself. But part of it is like, I'm kind of like pissed off about the fact that it's like, why did it have to take a global pandemic for these things to happen? So, the message for people that are watching right now is, don't let a global pandemic force you to change. You can do this yourself. You have the power to do this yourself. You don't need to always be pushed. How many people have been let go or laid off, and that's when they discover themselves? You don't need necessarily for that pain to be the catalyst. But when it does present itself, just don't ignore it. Embrace it. That's where you have to kind of be a masochist. And entrepreneurs are born masochists. We have to be, less sadistic and more masochistic to survive and thrive in this new world.
Well, and it's funny because I did the same thing, right? Like, it took this for me to change everything. Like at the beginning of the year, last year I lost 35 to 40 pounds, maybe 45 now. And I'm still working on it, losing weight, getting exercise and getting healthy.
Good for you. Follow me on Peloton. That's my new, like people say, like, follow me on Instagram, Twitter. No, follow me on Peloton.
Well, maybe. I'm not there yet, but one day. Let me get out of Arkansas first, and we'll go from there. I'm 1,200 miles from anyone, single father of 3, just enjoying, just getting them healed, right? So it took all of this for me to completely go through my spiritual transformation, to go through my mental transformation, to be willing to deal with my trauma, my therapy, to be willing to deal with my blame, shames, and guilt because, Annie showed me Brene Brown, right? So it took all of this horrible circumstances to push me to change. And it took me being stranded in the middle of nowhere, being alone, right? 1,200 miles at least from anyone that I know, to not feel alone anymore for the first time in my life, right? Because it's ironic, right? It took this extreme for me to get there. And I'm like you. I've never fit into anything. I have never fit into a round hole ever, and I have documents from my teachers to prove it. This is a long quote. I didn't want to cut your face off. Well, yeah, pretty
That's what
much.
I do.
Yeah.
I'm reading it. I mean, he's that Winston Churchill, as I often say on my show, that wild and crazy guy.
Yeah. Brilliance, pure brilliance.
But maybe there's something larger there. Is like, do any of us really fit in at the end of the day? Do we really? Is that our why we're? I say, like, on my show, for example, like, I should have the ability to have anyone on my show, whether they are, someone who doesn't think they've achieved a damn thing in their entire life, to Elon Musk or Richard Branson. It's my challenge to find their story, and everyone has a story, right? Everyone is interesting. Everyone has gone through interesting lessons and learnings. One of the things I do on my show is I start off with what I call fun facts, like interesting. Like, yesterday I had a philosopher. She describes herself as a practical philosopher. She loves horror movies, right? So that's one of her fun facts. Another thing is she's a DJ. She's like a kind of techno underground DJ. So we discussed the philosophical, angle or take on what it is to be, a DJ, and the philosopher's take on horror movies, and we discussed that whole concept of hope and hopelessness. And it was an icebreaker. But I mean, it's just like, someone likes horror movies. Everyone likes or hates horror movies. And I think, what has happened to me through this process is I've become, thanks to my wife, a better listener. You got to, so that's why, you and I have the same thing in common. We don't have 25 prepared questions, because if you think about it, how do you know what your guest is going to say? How can you have a canned question if you're not actually listening to what they have to say, which will spawn a next question and a new question and maybe a complete tangent? Well, you're not really listening at all. And that's fine. You can be an interviewer and a terrible listener, but that's not the show that I'm trying to create, nor is the show that you're trying to create.
No, and I agree with you, right? For me, it's all about intuitively just following where the person's going and being able to bring that story to light and bring that passion, that desire, that purpose, and also share how they got there, right? Like, for me, you can share that you're the greatest person in the planet. You can share that you've succeeded at everything you've done. But if you're not telling people about the downtimes and you're not telling people how you got out of them, then you're missing a real opportunity to inspire and teach others who are stuck, right? And there's so many people in this world today that are stuck, that it's just ridiculous. And I feel like there needs to be more people sharing their vulnerable sides and sharing, like you said about vulnerability, like that's my thing, right? Like, I lean into that hardcore. As I was going through my transformation, my live on YouTube was always me crying, me being upset, me being happy, me being all over the place, right? Because, like you said, it's this manic bipolar switch that this world has created for us. And I think that one main thing that came out of this is nobody's comfortable. There's no job that's secure. Corporate is not secure. It's not even close. And you have to be able to ebb and flow with it. You have to be able to surrender, to allow, accept things, right?
I like, by the way, what you just said about this idea of, if you think about it generationally, right? Our parents' generation, and even us. Look, I just turned 50 2 weeks ago, I guess. I'd like to say it was last week, 2 weeks ago, December 24th. And, the last job that I had, which I was laid off at, which was 2002, and I've never had a job since. I thought I would be a lifer at that company. I wanted to be. I wanted to rise up the pecking order and one day be the CEO of the company. And I was just kicked to the curb, right? So there is no loyalty anymore, not at the corporate level. But also, generationally, I think we've realized that this is not, life is not working. Life is not being a lifer, right? The only lifer is a life sentence when you're in prison. So
Yeah.
don't let life be your prison. Don't be imprisoned by life, right? Don't be a lifer anymore. And that also requires a different mindset on change. We see this with millennials spending much less time in a job at any given point in time. It's not that they're not loyal. It's that they need the variety. They need the ability to continue this lifelong or life's work, life's journey, because that's what life is about.
It is. It's that natural curiosity that the system tries to rip from us in a lot of ways. It's that desire to learn more, right? That desire to move outside of ourselves. And I don't think comfortable exists anymore in this world. I think if anything that I've taken from 2020, out of everything I've been through, out of helping my children heal from their abuse and still helping them daily, going through all my trauma from my childhood, like bringing all that back up, what I realized is I've never been comfortable. It's always an illusion of being comfortable, right? And in a way, it made me stuck, right? How many people are sitting in a corporate job that have been laid off now that didn't know how to leave that career, but now that they've turned it into some type of passion somewhere, right? And they made it less about the financial reward, but more about their individual personal satisfaction. And there's something deeper there, right? As humans, as society's evolved and we've gone through these industrial eras and everything else that we've gone through over the last 500 years, somewhere along the way, we all started falling into line and falling into this place that was created for us. And we've got to take more of that Renaissance period or Renaissance era mentality to where, why can't we learn everything? Why can't we be great at everything? Why you're never going to be perfect at anything, not a single thing.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, there are a couple points that I want to touch on. One is the power of adversity and the importance of adversity, but I'll come back to that. The second one is, I think the ultimate conformist shackles is social media. And listen, my second book was called Join the Conversation. I was one of the earliest adopters and boosters of social media. I still want us to return to, I always say, like, social is this is us right now. We are social, right? Social's having a beer, having a drink, talking human to human. Media comes from the word medium, neither rare nor well done. That's an Ernie Kovacs quote from the 50s, right? So media is oil, as in snake oil, as in trying to sell. Social is water, because without this human interaction, without water, we die. So we put oil and water together, we call it social media, and we expect it to work and make sense. It doesn't. But more importantly, psychologically and behaviorally, what it's done is it's less you and I, it's our kids. They're all conformists. They all act and compute the same way, whether they use a story, whether they use this. They don't want to stand out. They want to fit in, and so the people that end up standing out are these, like, I don't want to be, lambaste them, but these, like, these dumb TikTok stars that just do nothing, that they're like the Kim Kardashian of social media. But and I don't want to bash Kim Kardashian either, but the point is they put themselves out there. And that is actually, like, good for them. They win big because they put themselves out there, but they put themselves out there in an actual platform or sandbox that actually doesn't encourage people to put themselves out there. And actually TikTok is changing. I think TikTok has actually been a breath of fresh air, where people that have, physical deformities or mental challenges have been able to find a voice or a platform. So things are changing. But it's adversity, that second point, right? Adversity. If you look at all the great people in the world, in the history of this world, how many of them were born with a silver spoon in their mouth, that never went through any adversity, that never had any physical, mental, psychological, emotional challenges or hardships? Not many. So it's almost like you have to welcome that adversity. You got to, turn up the resistance level on your bike, right? You got to make it tough, because it isn't, without that resistance, without that adversity, people don't change and they don't grow.
And what I've learned this year, I think really what I've been really learning lately is that pain is the best lessons, right? What I've realized is my pain points and the pain that I go through is what teaches me the biggest and most valuable lessons that I can have. Whether it's loss, whether it's grieving, whether it's the end of a certain situation, whatever it is, any loss or any type of pain that I feel, like, so I've been doing this thing lately. I write gratitudes every morning. I've been doing this since August, since I started this. No, since I'm sorry, June, since I started this transformation, right? Now, what I've been doing lately is I've been writing my gratitudes, but flipping them. And I've been grateful for any pain points that I've had from the day before. So, whatever my pain points are, I flip them into a positive and turn around and find a great gratitude around my pain point, because I'm grateful for the opportunity to learn from that pain. And it could be something emotional, it could be something physical, it could be, I mean, I had a concussion on Monday. So there was a good pain point there, because it lasted till Wednesday.
Literally, right?
Yeah, literally, right? And being a single father of 3 at the same time, so that's enjoyable. But it's like I've really learned how to flip that perspective now. And like you said, it's not the masochist part. It's not such a negative word. It has a negative connotation, but I want those lessons because I grow and I evolve through them, right? Those lessons is what's helping me level up and move into my higher self, move into my best. I love it. There you go. More change. That's a great picture though. That's like, can we all go get stuck there?
Yeah, I mean, well, we can virtually, but the thing, you know, there's another point as well, which is we're not perfect, and sometimes, you know, like we all have bad days, we all have moments of weakness, and you know, through the show and through hosting the show, I've become a little bit more aware of and understanding mental health and wellness and depression. And it's the ability to just sometimes let it overcome you, let it just take you over, and allow it instead of fighting it. It's the same thing like having a bad show. Like, look, my guest in 53 minutes didn't fill out the briefing form. So I like literally don't even have a show prepped for him. I don't know if I have his bio. I don't even know if he's going to show up. Maybe he didn't get the memo. I used to beat myself up on it and just be so bummed about it. Now you just got to, like, I'm going to start the show in 53 minutes and it's going to be okay. And if he doesn't show, you know what? I'll have people just come onto the show and just, you know, and talk about what happened yesterday and use it as a sounding board to, like, say, how do you feel right now? Like, what's going on in your life? You know, like, how do we make sense of this? How do we have an intelligent conversation? It may allow us, it may allow me to pivot. It may create something completely new in the show, but it's the ability to, like, we are so hard on ourselves, and society can be so hard on us as well. And you need to be able to sometimes just allow yourself to fail, allow yourself to be weak, allow yourself to just kind of recognize that, you know, it isn't, I mean, it's impossible to grow without those moments, those weaknesses, those cracks, those without falling. It's impossible to grow, because how do you benchmark progress if everything is just, you know, I don't know, lemonade or sunflowers?
It's really funny, right? Because my business stories are really great, right? Like, I've been a millionaire on paper 3 times, homeless 5 times. This counts as being homeless because I'm in an Airbnb and my lease is over where I live. But like, people will say to me, like, but you've succeeded at stuff. And I said, you know what? I'm going to keep failing until I learn every lesson I need to. And I'm okay with that, because a perceived failure is where the growth happens, where I learn, so that when the time is right and one of my ideas goes to the right way, then everything else will fall in place because I already have the knowledge and the personal experience. You know, I've always been one of those kids, one of those people that needed to learn the hard way. I'm 41 years old and I was thrown out of 2 high schools and always in trouble in school because I just never fit in, and I really don't like authority. That's a whole nother issue. But, like, I mean, I've gotten to a point today where I just flow with it. I'm done fighting it, right? I'm just done with with resisting. I'm done with struggling. I'm done allowing those things to control me anymore.
Yeah,
Like,
and look, you really have gone through some adversity, and again, remember, you think you got it tough, someone's got it tougher. I'm grateful right now that I haven't gone through. You've gone through a really, really, really tough time right now, but you're not looking for sympathy. You're not looking for false praise. You're just getting on with it and getting on with the show, right? That's what it is to have a show. You get on with the show. The show must go on. But there's another thing that I would add to that, and that's, maybe it's more in keeping with my background, is simplifying, right? The power of simplification. There's so much in our lives that is just excessive and unnecessary. And it's not even a materialistic, superficial point. It's just like, what really counts? Like, I joke about Netflix, right? Netflix is like the greatest gift to like humankind, because people are complaining that it's gone up to I saw someone the other day going, Netflix is now $17.99. I think I'm going to cut Netflix and stay with Hulu and Disney. I'm like, $17.99, $17. That's basically the price of one movie ticket.
right.
You can easily sit down every night of your life with your family and make some popcorn and play a board game and read a book and watch Netflix and you can do that in a cabin where really just all you need is Wi-Fi. Like, it's a weird point I'm making, because I'm saying, like, what is an essential in life? I think Wi-Fi is an essential in life, by the way. I'm not necessarily saying
it is today.
I do not want to live in a log cabin without electricity. I would hate that. That would be worse than 2020 for me. But yeah. I'm saying the ability to stay connected and be connected, and recognizing, by the way, complete tangent on a tangent, that a high-speed, broadband high-speed internet connection is a right, not a privilege. It's a right and a privilege, right? But it's like, in terms of how our kids learn, etc., like, that's a priority. But you can live a simple life. You don't need to go to a Michelin star restaurant and pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a ridiculous meal and an overpriced bottle of wine. Like, that is not life. That is not life. Life. But if you get joy from it, then great. Then that is life for you. But I don't think that that's life for 99.9% of people.
I think, but people need to define what joy is too, right? I think we need to redefine what living is. I don't think living is what you buy, where you go, what you do. I think it's who you're with, right? And I think we need to go back to our core values, and we need to go back to our core of passion and where we stand in life. And you could be a garbage man and the happiest person on the planet, because when you come home, your three kids are the happiest people in the world, happiest kids in the world. They love you, they adore you, you're there, you spend time with them. You could be a billionaire and not have any time for them at all, and them not even really know what you're like. I mean, when I look at the spectrum of this, and I'm always extraordinarily ambitious. I love these big grandiose plans, and I have tons of them, and I am working on them in the background. But I've also made a decision that never again am I going to allow myself to be defined by what I do, right? I'm going to be defined by who I am and what I give back and how I serve others and how I help others. My companies, my businesses, my anything that I'm working on, that is just to betterment, those industries. And it's just, there's got to be an evolution. And you want to talk about a free right for broadband? I would love that out here, because the internet out here is atrocious. I mean, I'm literally an hour and a half from Starbucks, so that's where I am.
Well, that is adversity. By the way, I used to go to Starbucks every day of my life.
Me too.
And now all my stars have expired, and I go there maybe once every 2 to 3 weeks. Talk about a different kind of a change.
Yeah.
But look, I mean, I would say to people that are watching right now, like, write your eulogy. Like, if you disappeared from this planet tomorrow, what would people say about you? What would you say about yourself? Would you have made your mark? Would your time that you have spent have been worthwhile, not just to yourself, you're dead, but to the people around you? How will you be remembered? And it sounds again like almost like a dumb thing, but it's not a dumb thing. Write it down right now, and realize, and this is the beauty of it, that today, it's a kitschy saying, but I love it, right? Yesterday is history, today, tomorrow is a mystery, today is a gift. That's why they call it the present. So it's like, but the other point of it is like, I turned 50 on December 24th. I'm 50 years young. It is the ultimate glass half full, half empty. Look, I'm 50 years old. If I shave this, I don't even know what it is, fluff off, I would look younger. I'd like to tell you that I look 20, but I don't. I look maybe 45.
Right.
But I know that I look younger than I am. But more importantly is I feel younger than I am. And I realize that anybody that tells me you can't do this at 50, it's like, crap. That's not even remotely. I can do anything. There are some physical limitations. I'll never be able to run faster than a 19-year-old or my, or my 17-year-old son. Never. But that's okay. But there are other things I can do. I can start a new business at 50. I can reinvent myself. I can and I will. And that has got to be that's how we got to hit the ground running in 21.
And I think there's another part to that, right? There's an advantage to starting a business at 50. You have wisdom that you've acquired through the experiences in your life, right? And just because there's a couple 20-year-olds that went and became billionaires because they invented something on the piggyback of technology that didn't exist. I mean, I'm 41. That really didn't exist when we were kids. Doesn't make them more prepared to deal with the adversities coming next. I would take a 50-year-old entrepreneur over a 20-year-old any day.
I've had that conversation a lot on my show, and there's a word that actually came up to just build on that. Is the word is resilience.
Yes.
It is experience, wisdom, and resilience, and that is something that actually is a superpower of someone who. By the way, I'm trying to look for it as well. I was okay with everything turning 50 until I got my welcome package from the AARP. That's gonna be a flippin' rant on my show. Like, guys, who asked you to email? To say bastards. That's when I felt old for the first time, when the AARP told me, "Yes, I'm getting a discount. Go to hell.
Everywhere.
Stay away from me."
Right.
But yeah, I mean, and it's like, and we're doing it right now. The streaming thing is, I am writing a new presentation, maybe a book, maybe a training program called How I Reinvented Myself During a Global Pandemic. And you can too. Like, what I want to actually do with it is actually say, here is exactly how I did it, step by step. Go do it tomorrow. Do it. Compete with me if you want to. I don't care. But just come on in. Look behind me. The water is fine. Dive in head first. This is our gift right now. Everyone can be an Oprah Winfrey, right? Everyone can. Not everyone has the talent, obviously, but everyone can at least attempt to be. Maybe I should say everyone can attempt to be Oprah Winfrey.
But I don't think that your passion or your happiness is based on being the next Oprah Winfrey, right? It's putting yourself in a position where you get to express your happiness. Yeah. Right. So you don't have to be that, but you can be you. Right.
No, I mean, 100%. You're totally right. I mean, it's not, again, we're not benchmarking ourselves based on how many viewers, how many. In fact, so on my show this week, I had Andy Crestodino on Tuesday, and he spoke about something called the availability. I've got to tell him, I've now mentioned him twice on 2 interviews. I was interviewed on another show yesterday. It's called the availability heuristic. It's a philosophical thing. I don't know, whatever, but what it really talks about is the things that are easy to see, the things that are very visible, the things that are easy to measure are often the least important things. And he ties it to, business outcomes, and the things that are much harder to excavate, to identify, to measure, to see are the ones that are most strongly tied to profound and important business outcomes. So that's the thing. It's like we need to develop, I think, a new set of metrics, life metrics in our life. That's our goal. That's our challenge. Develop those life metrics, and those life metrics are the way that we will gauge and judge and triangulate and determine if we're on course, off course, how to veer, because we still need direction and we still need to know that we are walking and moving forward.
So, I mean, on that note, I mean, I think happiness is the measure, right? And joy and happiness. And I know you got to get going, so we're going to cut this.
I'm taking notes. You know, you've given me at least 4 new ideas, right?
Well,
not muscle memory, but memory muscle. Don't be a lifer, as in life sentence. The AARP thing, and develop life metrics. You like, and by the way, I've told people this is by doing this, by streaming, by being on shows, by interviewing, I'm learning things about myself, and I'm getting smarter. You know, 100%. And I get smarter as a guest. And I get smarter. I definitely get smarter as a host. I'm like a parasite as a host. You know, I just suck it all up. You know, just like feed off my guests. I'm kidding.
Well, I mean, but I love it, right? Because I'm downloading information at a rapid pace right this second, and I'm actively listening, and that's the difference, right? When you want to have a real conversation, you learn to actively listen, and you pay attention. You feed off it. You follow your intuition rather than second guessing yourself a lot more. Which is another reason I like live, because you don't have a choice. You're already live, so you've just got to make decisions on the spot. And you know, I'm going to give my podcast a little plug real quick, because it's launching on the 15th, and it's going to be called the KEW podcast, KEW Exchange.
I thought this was your podcast.
No, this is the pre-podcast, just because I wanted to do that series.
I like but that you have a pre. Well, when it comes out, and I will do whatever I can to support it. And but it's great. I mean, listen, it's fantastic what you're doing, and everything about it is just great. You know, it's like I don't even. Sometimes I look and I go, I'm on the show, but like, how did I even get on the show? Like, I think to myself, it's like, but that's what I allow. It's like I see when something gets your attention for whatever reason. It's for a reason, right? That's the point. For whatever reason, for a reason. Go.
It's all about it.
Like, it's all about. I want to be on your show. You know, like I like what you're doing. You know,
it's all about it. It's all about intuition for me. I follow what the universe shows me, right? And I believe that. I believe that things pop in my visible sight for a reason, right? And it doesn't always make sense at the moment, but I'm able to figure out a way that it does. And I'm always willing to be on your show anytime you want, if you want. And
no, I'm gonna trust me. It works. It's a reciprocal thing. It works both ways.
It does. And the KEW Exchange is knowledge, experience, wisdom exchange. So it's going to be where knowledge through experience transitions to wisdom. And that's the journey I want to take people on my show. And it's going to take them through the emotional side. It's going to take them through the steps to get bounced back. And I really want to give everybody and inspire everybody for hope. That's really what this is about.
I think my guest yesterday might have said that wisdom is the ultimate soft skill, and it incorporates and includes every other one, you know, including emotion, you know, EQ and wisdom. And what is wisdom at the end of the day, right? It's the ability to impart all of that knowledge and experience on not only on your own future actions, but for others. So
it is. Generational learning needs to come back into play.
You can't hoard wisdom, right? Wisdom doesn't work if you don't share it. It's just as simple as that, you know. So wisdom is the ultimate collaborative and the ultimate connective tissue.
100%. And I'm going to cut this live now, because I know we're getting close to your time, and it seems like we could talk for easily another hour.
We could. I'm going live in 37 minutes. And so if anyone's watching and you want to see what a show looks like that is completely, you can go to the coronatv.show will link to, to my YouTube channel, but it's on my Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, just like you as well. And if he shows up, Neil Schaffer, I don't even know how to pronounce his name, but I this is the fun. Neil, if you're watching this, please contact me. Are you on my show or not?
Well, that's part of the fun of live, right? You won't know until he's either there or not. So, and maybe with String, you already got a bad link. You just never know.
You never know. But just forgive yourself.
Yeah, 100% self-compassion at all times. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Joe, it's a great conversation. I look forward to many more.
Yeah, as do I. Good luck with everything. I hope your concussion heals, and I appreciate everyone and all of your comments as well. You know, this is the power of live, right? Live doesn't work without comments. Otherwise, you don't need to be live. So
the engagement.
That's another conversation for another day, which is to recognize that your listeners, your viewers are actually, your audience are actually not that at all. They're your community, and they are as inextricably part of the show as the host and the guest. So take care, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity. This was awesome chatting with you.
You are very welcome, and I truly appreciate it. Thank you for finding me.
Thank you for allowing me to be found.
There you go. Have a great day, everybody.